Very rarely is there a player who enters the trade market that is as legendary as Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, in the last 25 years, guys that were traded, and I mean actual trades, not just signing trades, but guys who were traded who are as good or almost as good as Giannis is like Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard, Luka Doncic, of course, Kevin Garnett, and Shaquille O'Neal. And when you talk about the first two guys in Durant and Kawhi Leonard, it's not like there was a huge bidding war because it was very clear where those two guys wanted to be. You had Kevin Durant, who was already aging a little bit, and he said, I want to go to Phoenix. And he did say Miami at first, but he quickly cut us off his list and said, I want to go to Phoenix. So other teams were kind of deterred of trading for him, and he ended up going to Phoenix. Whereas Kawhi Leonard, he was on the last year of his deal and said, I want to go to LA. Everybody knew it. But guess what? They didn't send him to LA. He went to Toronto, won a championship, but then he left. Toronto was the only team with the balls to actually trade for Kawhi Leonard when he said, I don't want to be there. So there wasn't a huge bidding war for those guys. Neither was there for Luka or Shaq or Kevin Garnett because all of those were kind of under the table deals if you think about it. Obviously, with Luka, you had Nico Harrison and Rob Pelinka, their friends. They were talking behind every other GM's back. Obviously, nobody knew about that. You had Kevin Garnett, where it was Kevin McHale. He did his good old buddy Danny Ainge, that bum. He did his friend Danny Ainge, a little friend, because they're close back when they used to play on the Celtics back in the day. And then, of course, with Shaquille O'Neal, that one obviously worked out in Heat fans' favor. And y'all can do me a favor by hitting that subscribe button, baby. 56.7% of y'all are not subscribed yet. Make sure to hit the button to fix that. Let's get back into the video. And that's when you had Pat Riley, who had a relationship with Mitch Kupchak, who they had a separate side discussion as well. Because actually what happened at the time there is Pat Riley had just stepped down from coaching on the Miami Heat. That job went to Stan Van Gundy. But then the Lakers basically hit up Pat Riley and said, hey, you want to coach again? And Pat Riley's like, sure, yeah, I'll coach as long as Kobe and Shaq are staying together. And Mitch Kupchak's like, nah, we can't really keep those two together. Their relationship is not really mendable. But hey, if you don't want to come here, we'll trade you Shaq. And that's basically what ended up happening. And of course, how the Heat got Shaquille O'Neal. So Giannis will truly be one of the best players to ever hit the trade market. Now, of course, time will tell what teams he has on his list that he eventually formulates, if not already, and how many actual teams will be on that list. But what we do know right now, or at least I can say with 90% certainty, is that Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to get traded this offseason. Why? Well, because he practically said so himself. This video is from before the 23-24 season, in which he hopped on the 48 Minutes podcast, part of the Believe Network. Shout out to my guys over there. But this is what Giannis had to say.
Most importantly, I'm a winner. I want to win. And I have to do whatever it takes for me to win. And if there's a better situation for me to win the Larry O'Brien, I have to take that better situation.
He quite literally said that he would leave Milwaukee if there was a better situation to win the Larry O'Brien trophy. Like, that's not taken out of context. There's no ambiguity there. He said it. And it's not like that's the only time that he's ever said something like that either. Remember when Giannis was talking before the 23-24 media day? I remember that quote because as a Heat fan, it got me excited when he said, I want to be a Milwaukee Buck for the rest of my career. ... As long as we're winning. Well, guess what? The Bucks aren't winning. This is their third year in a row where they fell short in the first round. Of course, the past two seasons, there's been a lot of misfortune with injuries. And then the year before that, they ran into God mode Jimmy Butler. But that doesn't change the fact that the Bucks' future is bleak. Because next season, the Bucks are very likely to meet another first-round demise after the unfortunate injury to Damian Lillard. Truly, I was devastated for Dame after everything that he's been through, and he seems like such a great guy. But that doesn't change the fact that he's turning 35 and he just tore his Achilles in April, meaning that he likely won't be able to suit up next season at all. And with the salary cap space that Dame is taking up and the Bucks' lack of tradable first-round picks and other assets, it's very clear that next season is going to be a rough one for Milwaukee. And Giannis is already 30 years old. His desire to win has been stated time and time again. So if he was ever going to ask for a trade, right now would be the time. And this means that an all-out bidding war amongst 29 other teams is likely to ensue. Now, I'm sure Giannis will put together a list of preferred trade destinations, and because the Bucks aren't run by that bum-ass Joe Cronin, they're likely to respect his wishes. Now, over the last week since Dame's injury, I've pretty much came across a trade package on the internet for every single team, and in this video, I want to get into some of my favorites. So the teams I want to focus on are the Spurs, Thunder, and Rockets because they all have a ton of tradable picks and assets and could also retain a core that could win a championship right now and contend for years to come. And of course, with all these teams, there's dozens of variations of trades that they could put together. These are just the ones that I came up with. So we'll start with the Spurs, who will be sending over Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, Stephon Castle, and 5 first-round picks to the Milwaukee Bucks in exchange for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, truthfully, it might not take 5 first-round picks to get this done. That's a lot of picks, and the Spurs also have more picks if they wanted to add more. But I think 5 would be the max that Milwaukee would ask for, especially when you consider that a guy like Kevin Durant only went for 4. That Rudy Gobert haul that we always hear about, he also went for 4 first-round picks. And Stephon Castle is obviously a great player who was just taken last year, number 4th overall in that draft. So I do think in any trade, the Bucks would want to get younger and get picks. I think they would go more in a rebuild mode than try to win now, just because they don't have much else right now outside of Giannis. And I don't think it makes sense for them to try to compete when you should just get as many assets as possible. And that's what they're going to be doing in all these trades. I think Stephon Castle is a great place to start because I think he's probably the only guy in this past draft with all-star potential. I mean, maybe not the only guy, but he's certainly the guy that I feel the most confident saying that about. He obviously came into the league as someone who was an elite lockdown defender, and we saw that his entire rookie season, but the offense also really picked up. He averaged about 15 points per game this season, but the last couple months of the year, once De'Aaron Fox went out and Wemby went out, we really saw Castle go on a tear, almost averaging 20 points per game in the last 2 months of the season. The jump shot's getting there as well. He's elite at getting to the rim. He just looks like a guy that can be an elite two-way player. I really think he has that kind of potential. And not to mention that the other guys they're getting here, which are the salary filler, is Keldon Johnson and Harrison Barnes. They're not bums either. Like, let's just not act like there's some random scrubs just to make the contracts work. That's not the case. Keldon Johnson is only 25 years old. And although he's having a bit of a down season, he's averaged like 22 points per game in a season before. Like, he still has potential, and if the Bucks don't want to keep him, I do think that they could find another team to take on his contract and maybe attach some assets to get him. Maybe he's not worth a first-round pick. Maybe he is, but definitely some seconds, and just another way for the Bucks to just get some more draft capital. Harrison Barnes, although he's a bit older, 32 years old, he's having a hell of a season. Like, he's shooting the lights out the ball. I still think he's a really great player, and he's definitely a guy that the Bucks could get even more picks for also if they wanted to trade him to another team. And as far as the San Antonio Spurs, they would be able to field the lineup of De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell, cap space, because if you look at what this trade does to their cap space, they'd still be $42 million under the first apron. So they have a ton of money to play with to find themselves a starting small forward if they don't want to take someone who's already on their roster. But Fox, Devin Vassell, whoever they fill in with that cap space, Giannis, and Victor Wembanyama. Although the Spurs missed the playoffs this past season, I know they had some injuries there, adding in Giannis to that core with a full training camp of De'Aaron Fox, I think it's safe to say that that team's a championship contender. I really do. I mean, Fox, Giannis, and Wemby really does not have a lot of weaknesses. That is an elite defensive unit. Offensively is elite. Maybe you're concerned about the spacing with Fox and Giannis because they're not the best three-point shooters, but Wemby will let that thing fly. You still got Devin Vassell at the 2, who's a very good shooter, and then they can use that cap space to kind of find a great three-point shooter at that number 3 spot anyway. So I think this is an excellent deal for both teams. Obviously, if it comes to the Bucks having to trade Giannis, I don't think they can ask for much more than this. If you're watching this video, then you are an elite ball knower, so why not take advantage of it with MyBookie? Listen, y'all, throughout the NBA playoffs, I'll be using their live betting feature to smash the Davion Mitchell overs and smash the Rudy Gobert unders, and then using their early cash out option to stack up the profits. If you want to do the same, make sure to sign up for MyBookie using promo code MM50, which will instantly boost your first deposit. And then once the games wrap up, you can check out their casino, which has blackjack and slots and roulette, you name it. Bet on anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Now let's get back into the video. The second team I want to talk about is the Houston Rockets, who will be sending over Jalen Green, Jabari Smith Jr., Reed Shepherd, and 3 first-round picks to the Milwaukee Bucks in exchange for Giannis. The pick situation is a bit weird here too, because the Rockets also have a ton of picks. They could add plenty more if they needed to, but I only put 3 here because they are adding some more young players than the Spurs were in the previous trade. I'm not the biggest Jalen Green guy. He's a bit inconsistent, but he's still very young. I still think he has a lot of potential because at his peak, we've seen him be a guy who could score 40 points on any given night. His athleticism is through the roof. So at the very least, he's a very young and exciting player that I think Bucks fans could get excited about. Jabari Smith Jr. is a guy who was taken very high in the draft just a couple years ago. He's still in his very early 20s. He hasn't shown his full potential yet in Houston, but I still think he's a guy that can be a very great defender in this league and also have the ability to stretch the floor. And at his age, he's still a nice young asset, in my opinion. Same goes for Reed Shepherd, who obviously was a very high pick in this past draft, but he never got to play. The Rockets were just so damn deep, he really didn't get a spot in the rotation. But he's a guy that, based off the Summer League, people were thinking he could win Rookie of the Year. He very clearly has a ton of skill, and he's another piece that the Bucks could definitely get excited about. And then obviously they're throwing 3 first-round picks on top of that. As far as the Houston Rockets, they would be able to field a lineup of Fred VanVleet / cap space, because VanVleet is making $40 million next year on a team option. I do believe the Rockets would want to decline that just because $40 million for VanVleet is a lot of money. But if they don't want to mess up with the chemistry that this team has, as of this recording, they just forced a Game 7 versus the Golden State Warriors after being down 3-1, which is crazy. So, and VanVleet's been playing well, so it remains to be seen what happens there. But their point guard could be VanVleet or whoever they get with their cap space, because they would also be, well, it shows on this picture they're about $7 million under the first apron, but that's including that VanVleet contract. So obviously a ton of more money would open up for them to get whoever they want. And then the rest of their starting lineup is a bit tricky, who they want to put there. I just put Amen at the 2 with Dillon Brooks at the 3, and then Giannis and Şengün to round out their front courts. Obviously, you got some spacing concerns there. Şengün's not going to shoot. Neither really is Amen or Giannis. And surprisingly, Dillon Brooks is actually having a phenomenal season shooting the ball. But they can move around their lineup. They can find some more shooters in free agency to make it work. I do think a core of Amen, Giannis, and Şengün can be a championship contender. If not next season, maybe the year after that. The only reason I'm not so sure about them being a contender immediately is because the fit is a bit odd with regards to the spacing. So maybe they need another year to really round out their roster. Some other things we've heard for them is, would they trade Amen Thompson? I think if they were willing to trade Amen, they could get Giannis pretty easily. I think Amen is one of the guys in this league who might have one of the highest trade values, I guess to say. But I don't think the Bucks would trade him. He's too good. The potential there looks like it's through the roof. Obviously, he'll never really be able, or man, I don't want to say he'll never be able to shoot. He's still a young player, but I don't think he'll ever be a sniper. I don't think he'll ever be a floor spacer. So that fit with Giannis will always be weird, but I still don't think that the Rockets would ever trade him, and they could field a competitive roster still while keeping him. And next, we got the Oklahoma City Thunder, who will be sending Isaiah Hartenstein, Alex Caruso, J-Dub, Jalen Williams, and Nikola Topic, in addition to 9 first-round picks in exchange for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, very clearly, I'm not being realistic here. The goal of this exercise is just to show everybody how many damn picks the Oklahoma City Thunder have. And the moral of the story here is, if the Thunder want somebody, they can get them. I've been telling you guys for a long time now that team scares the hell out of me, because they already might win the championship this year, and they have such a loaded arsenal that they can get whoever they want. Nikola Jokic becomes available, get him. Anthony Edwards becomes available, come over to OKC. They really have the power to get everyone they want. It's actually crazy. Now, theoretically, I guess they could get Giannis without actually trading J-Dub. That would mean that they could keep Shea and J-Dub and Chet and Giannis. But they would just be so top heavy because J-Dub's only making $9 million this year, but he is up for a big extension. He's probably going to get the max. And then you'd have the OKC Thunder paying 4 max players, including Chet. They'd be well into the second apron. They wouldn't be able to field a team of great depth. I just don't think the Thunder would want to do that. Part of what makes the Thunder so successful right now is the depth that they have. They literally have like 10 very solid playable players. And you just can't do that if you're paying 4 guys the max. So I think they would have to let go of Chet or J-Dub. I think they would probably prefer to get rid of J-Dub just because the fit with Giannis and Chet seems like it'd be phenomenal because Chet's a great interior defender. Giannis can do a little bit of both on the defensive side. But then obviously you have Chet who can stretch the floor to kind of allow those driving lanes for Giannis and Shea, of course. So the Thunder could put a lineup out there of, I guess, Shea, maybe Isaiah Joe, just to give them some spacing. You could go him. You could go Aaron Wiggins. But then they'd have Dort at the 3, Giannis at the 4, Chet at the 5. This would easily be the most dominant team in the NBA. I honestly believe that. I've heard a lot of people say, oh, if the Thunder win it this year, why would they want Giannis? And my answer is they might win the championship this year. But if they added Giannis, they would definitely win it next year. I don't care if Giannis is 30 and he's 7 years older than J-Dub. You take a guaranteed championship window because you never know. The Thunder once had a team of James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant, and they got 0 rings to show for it. You go for the guaranteed championship window, even if it's a smaller one than what you currently have. That's what I believe. So realistically, if these were the salaries that the Thunder were going to send, which is Hartenstein, Caruso, J-Dub, and Topic, I mean, the Bucks could even send Hartenstein and Caruso and get more picks. I mean, maybe even Nikola Topic. We don't know what Topic is. He was just selected last year in the lottery, and he didn't play yet because I think he tore his ACL, but he'll be back next year. But he was a lottery pick. He was a guy that was probably going to go higher than where he was picked if he didn't tear his ACL. So the Bucks could theoretically take these 9 picks and get even more. So that being said, if these were the salaries that the Thunder were actually going to send, I mean, maybe they'd have to attach 2 first-round picks at most. Maybe 3 at most, but I could see it being done with 2 just because I do think J-Dub is probably the best young piece that we discussed this video. I mean, maybe outside of Stephon Castle, but I don't know. J-Dub's just a bit more proven at this point. So, yeah, he's probably the best young asset that we discussed this video. So the Thunder wouldn't need to give up a bunch of picks in addition to him. But there is one dark horse team that I think Giannis would be interested in, who likes their team, yet lacks the assets, but I still think could make a run at Giannis because they have a miracle worker as a GM and a godfather as a president. And of course, that's the Miami Heat. So I cooked up this wild 5-team trade where everybody wins, but I've been talking for a very long time, so I think I'm going to make this a part 2 video and actually upload the Miami Heat section tomorrow. So we'll get into why I think Giannis might actually want to come to Miami, why I think it's possible, why him having the same agent as Bam Adebayo might actually help the situation. So like I said, subscribe so you don't miss it. I do appreciate all the support. Make sure to leave your comments down below on all the trades that we discussed today. Let me know which ones you like the best because I'm very curious to hear what y'all think. That being said, like the video and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city, tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.